What's going on, guys? Steve here with Geek Boulevard, and it is another movie review week here on the Geek Boulevard channel. And I bet you're wondering where my Red One review is. Well, I decided to take it upon myself to not go see Red One because the trailers haven't really sold me on it. The movie just doesn't look interesting, funny, or anything of that nature, and I just didn't want to waste my time. It takes a while to edit these videos. I am a one-man show here, so it takes a good portion of my time, and I wanted to talk about a movie that I was very excited about and willing to really go in depth about in terms of what I liked about it, what I didn't like, and be as constructive as I can, but still give you positive things about the experience. And that's what I intend to do in this video. Now, there is a sequel to said movie that I have watched coming out this weekend, that is Gladiator II, and I had not seen the original Gladiator, and I thought I would take it upon myself to watch said film and give my thoughts on it. This is the first time I had ever seen it. It's been out for all these years. Never took the time to watch it until now because, you know, I just, for some reason, never really got around to it, but now that Gladiator II is coming out, I have that incentive to talk about it. There's two versions of the movie. There's the theatrical cut and, of course, the extended cut, and Ridley Scott is very well known for releasing director's cuts, extended cut versions of his movies. He did multiple cuts of Blade Runner, and his final cut of that film is the more superior version. It's the original vision that he intended for the film. And same with the recent Napoleon with Joaquin Phoenix. That had a shorter theatrical version released in theaters, and I believe there was an extended version released on Apple TV Plus that you can watch on there as well. But I decided to take it upon myself to watch the extended cut of Gladiator, and this movie has a very high reputation. It's won a lot of Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Actor with Russell Crowe, Best Sound Mixing, I think Best Visual Effects, and Best Costume Design, I think, is another one. And rightly so. A lot of these awards are definitely warranted. I think the set design for it is spectacular. This is epic on a grand scale in terms of like a historical piece. And it's very reminiscent of old style filmmaking in that sense, with all these elaborate Roman costumes and weapons and all these just great elaborate sets. It's really something to behold. And this film has a special place in a lot of people's hearts, with critics, with audiences. There's a lot to like about this movie. Now, having watched the movie, do I agree with most of the population that does enjoy this movie? I agree with most of it, but I think this film definitely has some very weak points to it, and we'll go into what I think those are. All right, so let's talk about the characters, and I'm gonna be breaking them down from least important to the most important. And I have about 5 characters that I'm gonna just talk a little bit about, and whether I think that they fit into the movie pretty well, or if I feel like they could have been fleshed out further. And I'm going to start with Djimon Hounsou as the character Juba. He's another fellow gladiator that was taken just as Russell Crowe's Maximus was in the film, and the two of them start out as strangers, and they find some sort of a commonality with each other's plight, and they start to fight alongside together. They have a couple scenes of dialogue together. And I feel like Djimon's character was definitely not fleshed out enough. Now, the movie does have a lot of juggling things going on in it, so it could be because there just wasn't really a lot of time to flesh out his character, even in the extended cut. I feel like there's definitely some things missing that I think could have been explored a little bit more. Juba does mention his family and how he's going to see them one day, and you get a little bit of that backstory, but there's not much of it there. So he's just kind of like this ancillary character that is just fighting alongside Maximus, trying to overthrow the emperor and give Rome back to its people and to go back to his family. So you get a little bit of that, but his character arc is very simple and bland, and it was just a shame that he didn't really get much to do outside of some pretty cool action scenes with Russell Crowe, so that was a bit of a letdown. Richard Harris plays Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, and Richard Harris, most people will know him as Dumbledore from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, as well as the Chamber of Secrets. Unfortunately, he had passed away after the making of those movies, so it was interesting seeing him in a different type of role. I've always seen him in Harry Potter. I've never really seen him in much other things, but I think despite him only having about maybe like 30 minutes of screen time at most, I think that his character arc was actually pretty interesting. He is an emperor and he has all of this immense power, but he's struggling to come to terms with that because not only is he aging and he needs to figure out who he's going to have succeed him to the throne, and he is struggling with this notion that he has committed a lot of bad things to get to this point. He's having that internal battle with himself in terms of his conscience, and he wants to pass on this mantle to someone that he knows will not be corrupted by it or hasn't been corrupted by it, and he sees Maximus as an ideal candidate for that. So even though he was only in the film for a short time, I actually think his scenes were pretty well done, and I liked his exchanges with Joaquin, his exchanges with Russell Crowe. It was very cool to see his acting style outside of something like the Harry Potter films. Connie Nielsen plays Lucilla, and I think out of all the characters in this film, she, to me, probably has the most layers to her in terms of the complexity of what it means to be in a family of the ruling class, and realizing that, you know, ruling with an iron fist is just not the way to bring peace. You sometimes might need to give that power back to the people and let them decide who they want to rule over them, or whatever the case may be. And I think that her wrestling with that notion and realizing that the people should be the ones in charge of Rome, and with Maximus's help, she's able to achieve that. So I think out of all the characters, she's by far the most interesting. Joaquin Phoenix plays Commodus. He is the son of Marcus Aurelius and the brother to Lucilla. And I think he is, without a doubt, the definition of a caricature. He is the basic through-line villain through and through. He's evil just for the sake of being evil. He's got daddy issues. He's pretty much a coward. And despite, you know, Joaquin Phoenix giving a good performance, his character does not have any type of nuance to him. There's no complexities to him. And I like my villains to be a little bit more complex. I want there to be more meat to them. He's just a spoiled brat that thinks that he's entitled, and he will do anything he can to get what he wants. I just feel like despite him giving a really great performance, his character was very flat, very boring. I didn't really like him or like find him very interesting as a villain. He's just a cookie cutter bad guy, plain and simple. And of course we come to the star of the film itself, Russell Crowe as Maximus. Now I think that Russell Crowe is definitely deserving of the Best Actor win. I think his performance as Maximus was fantastic. His scenes with Connie Nielsen were great. His scenes with Djimon Hounsou, especially with Richard Harris. I really enjoyed those scenes with him and Richard Harris, even though they only had a limited amount of screen time together. But his character, just like Commodus, he's just a very basic caricature of what a good guy would be in a movie such as this. He's the hero. Commodus is the villain. That's it. There's nothing else to him other than he has a family that he wanted to get back to, and obviously, unfortunately, that isn't going to happen because Commodus decides to have his family murdered. So this is, you know, a revenge story for the most part, but it is also about freeing Rome from someone who is looking to rule with an iron fist. But I think his character didn't really have any complexities. He lacked so much depth to him. Him and Commodus, they're just very one-dimensional characters, and I didn't really care so much about Maximus outside of the fact that, okay, yeah, his family's dead, so I want to see him get revenge in the basic sense, but there was no wrestling with the choices that he made as a general or anything like that, because he's definitely killed a lot of people as a general, but it was all for the glory of Rome, and you don't really see him wrestling with that too much. It just seemed to me like his character was just a little bit flat. Now, I think in terms of the story, compared to like the spectacle, the action scenes and all that, it definitely seems like the story is by far the weakest part of that. It's a very straightforward revenge tale, and it's almost a 3-hour film. At least the extended cut is almost a 3-hour film. So it doesn't really leave a lot of room to give a lot of nuance, I guess you could say. A lot of those rooms for nuance are filled in with action scenes and, like I said, spectacle. This is a historical epic, and I was hoping that with the characters in the film, they might be able to flesh out the movie and make it a little bit more complex, a little bit more three-dimensional. And they don't really do that too often. So it is kind of a shame that the story kind of is suffering a little bit, and they tend to rely a little too much on the spectacle. There's a lot of Colosseum scenes for sure, which are very cool to watch, I will admit, but they do tend to have a lot of jarring editing and shaky cam, which is just abundant in this film. I actually got a little motion sick trying to keep track of it all. I think it forces the story to be far more inferior compared to the spectacle of its action scenes. Now, the music score is definitely one of the best things about this film by far. Hans Zimmer composed it, and Lisa Gerard was the background vocalist on this score as well. She's worked with him on plenty of other projects, Mission Impossible 2, she's worked with him on Dune and Dune Part 2. It's just the way that Hans Zimmer composes these very epic scores, not just for Gladiator, but for a lot of his films, and they always work in every sense of the way, and he always makes them very different from each other and still manages to make them feel epic and give me goosebumps every time that I listen to them. So just 10 out of 10 in terms of the music in this film. Now, I think the cinematography in this is very well done. I think John Matheson, who's the cinematographer, this was his first collaboration with Ridley Scott, and I think he did just a fantastic job. And I had no idea that he also did the cinematography for Logan, for Detective Pikachu, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and as well as, of course, the upcoming Gladiator II. And he's also doing the cinematography for the new Jurassic World film from Gareth Edwards. So that's going to be exciting to see. And I think that he did a great job, especially with those big wide open shots of the Colosseum and just the battles overall. I think were shot pretty well. I just feel like the editing was a little wonky at times, and the super fast cuts and the shaky cam is just, that bothered me quite a bit. But I think outside of all that, the cinematography is beautiful to look at. Every color in the film is very vibrant. It screams an epic in that type of way. So I definitely think that John Matheson overall did a phenomenal job. In terms of a final verdict, I'm going to give Gladiator Extended Cut a score of 4 out of 5. While I don't think it's as good as I was hoping it would be with its rather thin plot, and even though Russell Crowe gives a great performance as Maximus, I just wish his character, as well as others, had a little more complexity to them. There's no denying that this picture screams a Hollywood epic in many other ways, from the stellar production design, gorgeous cinematography, and equally epic score from Hans Zimmer. I'm even more intrigued now as to how the sequel will fare, as the first film is a very conclusive story, so we'll see how Scott manages to up his game here. I was hoping it was going to be as epic as everyone said it was, but I think I just had so much high expectations in my head, it just didn't quite live up to that. But it's still an enjoyable film. It's definitely a film I'll revisit. I'll probably check out the theatrical cut just to see where the differences were. Maybe it might be a tighter film for that, and I might appreciate it more. I don't know. We'll find out. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What did you think of Gladiator when you first saw it? Do you think it's an overrated film? Do you think it deserves all the praise that it's been getting? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and don't forget that if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to Geek Boulevard. Tick that notification bell so you can always stay up to date when my next review or trailer reaction drops on the channel. Thank you for watching, guys, and until next time, always remember to keep it classy and keep it geeky.
What we doing live echoes in eternity.